Commander Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the UES Resolute, watching the massive alien construction grow larger on the screen. The Nexus station was the size of a small moon, its crystalline spires reaching out like grasping fingers into the void. Somewhere inside that labyrinth of alien architecture, humanity's fate would be decided. 5 minutes to docking, reported Lieutenant Marcus Torres from the navigation console. His voice was steady, but Sarah could see the tension in his shoulders. They all felt the weight of 6 billion lives hanging in the balance. "Remember," Sarah said to her small diplomatic team, "we're not here to beg. We're here to negotiate." Dr. Elena Vasquez adjusted her tablet nervously. "The consortium's demands are extensive. 50 years of tribute, all our advanced technology, permanent surveillance stations in every human system. If we refuse, they'll declare us a rogue species and authorize the cleansing fleets," finished Admiral James Harrison, Sarah's military advisor. The old soldier's weathered face showed no emotion, but his hands were clenched behind his back. 200 worlds, gone in a week. Sarah nodded grimly. The Galactic Trade Consortium had been collecting civilization debts for over 10,000 years. Every species that achieved faster-than-light travel was presented with a bill, compensation for using established hyperspace routes, fees for galactic stability maintenance, taxes on unauthorized expansion. Most species paid without question. Those who refused were eliminated as examples to others. Humanity had been discovered 6 months ago when their first colony ship emerged from hyperspace directly into a consortium patrol route. The patrol commander had been surprised. According to galactic records, humans should have been extinct for over 3,000 years. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic clang that echoed through the ship's hull. Sarah straightened her uniform and checked her sidearm. Purely ceremonial, according to diplomatic protocol, but it made her feel better. "Let's go collect our debt," she said. The Nexus station's interior was designed to intimidate. Vast corridors stretched impossibly high, filled with floating holographic displays showing the consortium's countless member species. The architecture itself seemed to whisper, "You are small. You are nothing. Submit." Their guide was a Vectar, one of the consortium's enforcement species. The insectoid alien's forearms gestured dismissively as it led them through the maze of corridors. "The Tribunal of Economic Justice awaits," it chittered in accented standard. "Your species accounting has been complicated to calculate." "How so?" Sarah asked. The Vectar's compound eyes reflected the station's harsh lighting. "Your people have been resourceful in avoiding proper registration. We have had to estimate damages and lost revenues. The total is quite substantial." They entered the tribunal chamber, a vast amphitheater with the human delegation standing in a circle of harsh light at the center. Above them, arranged in ascending tiers, sat representatives of the consortium's ruling species. Each was more alien and intimidating than the last. The hierarch spoke first. It was a being of pure energy contained within a shimmering field, its voice resonating directly in their minds. "Species designation, human. You stand accused of galactic trade violations spanning 3 millennia. How do you answer?" Sarah stepped forward. "We answer that your accusations are based on flawed data. Hierarch. Humanity achieved FDL travel only 73 years ago. We couldn't have been violating trade laws for 3,000 years." A ripple of something like laughter passed through the assembled aliens. The hierarch's energy field pulsed brighter. "Your species was cataloged by our survey teams in Galactic Cycle 7847. Primitive but promising. We expected contact within 500 cycles. You disappeared." "We never disappeared," Elena said, consulting her tablet. "We've been on Earth the entire time." "Impossible," declared another tribunal member, a crystalline being whose voice rang like breaking glass. "Our records show your homeworld was rendered uninhabitable by solar flares. The few survivors were relocated to resource world designations 445 through 449. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. What are you talking about? Earth is perfectly habitable. We have 6 billion people living there right now. The silence that followed was deafening. The tribunal members exchanged what could only be described as confused looks, difficult to interpret across wildly different physiologies, but unmistakable nonetheless. Finally, the hierarch spoke again. You claim to still inhabit Terra 3, the world you call Earth? Yes, Sarah said firmly. And we have no record of any contact with your survey teams. Now would be a perfect time to hit that subscribe button. This story is just getting started, and you won't want to miss what happens next. The crystalline being's voice shattered the silence. Archon Kelthos was responsible for the Terra survey. Archon, please explain. Another alien rose from the upper Tierra, massive creature that looked like a cross between a crab and a spider, its shell covered in bioluminescent patches that pulsed with agitation. The survey was routine, it rumbled. Primitive bipeds, crude technology, high aggression index. Standard containment protocol was implemented. What, Sarah asked slowly, is standard containment protocol? Archon Kelthos's eye stalks swiveled toward her. Environmental modification to prevent technological advancement. Solar disruption was deemed most efficient. The species would be reduced to pre-industrial levels within 2 generations, then relocated for resource extraction when ready. The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. You try to destroy our sun. Try. The hierarch's energy field flickered with what might have been confusion. The stellar manipulation devices were deployed successfully. Your star should have entered an unstable phase, rendering your world uninhabitable within 50 of your years. Admiral Harrison stepped forward, his military bearing rigid with controlled fury. They try to commit genocide, he said quietly. They try to kill our entire species and harvest our world. It was standard procedure, Kelthos protested. Aggressive species must be controlled before they become a threat to galactic stability. Elena was frantically checking her tablet, cross-referencing dates. Wait, she said suddenly. Commander, what if they succeeded? What do you mean? The solar anomalies of 2847. The 3-year solar storm nearly destroyed our civilization. Our scientists never could explain what caused it. The sun just went crazy for 3 years. The pieces fell into place in Sarah's mind. That was you, she said, turning to face Kelthos. You tried to kill us all. The procedure was carried out correctly, the Archon insisted. If your species survived, it was through unauthorized intervention or technological assistance. No, Admiral Harrison said, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. We survived because you underestimated us. We survived because when our sun tried to kill us, we didn't roll over and die. We adapted. Sarah felt a surge of pride as she remembered the history lessons. The Great Solar Storm of 2847 to 2850. Humanity's darkest hour, when solar flares knocked out all satellites and electronics for 3 years running. 2 billion people had died, but the survivors had rebuilt. Stronger, smarter, more determined. We didn't have any help, she said to the assembled tribunal. We had underground cities, backup power systems, shielded electronics. When you tried to burn us out, we went underground and waited for the storm to pass. Then we came back up and reached for the stars anyway. If you're enjoying this story of human resilience, smash that like button, because it's about to get even better. The hierarch's energy field dimmed noticeably. This is unprecedented. No species has ever survived stellar manipulation. Because most species probably aren't used to living on a world that's actively trying to kill them, Elena interjected. Earth has ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, solar storms, magnetic pole reversals, and about a dozen other extinction-level events every few million years. We evolved on a death world. A little extra solar radiation was just Tuesday for us. A new voice joined the conversation, smooth, reptilian, dripping with disdain. Even if your species survived the containment protocol, you still owe 3,000 years of accumulated trade violations. The debt must be paid. Sarah looked up at the speaker. a serpentine creature covered in iridescent scales. From Elena's briefing materials, she recognized it as a Nagathul, one of the consortium's most ruthless debt collectors. Actually, Sarah said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, I think you have that backwards. Excuse me? Sarah gestured to Elena, who activated a holographic projector. The air above them filled with legal documents, trade receipts, and accounting records. Dr. Vasquez has spent the last 6 months reviewing consortium law. Elena stepped forward, her nervousness replaced by scholarly precision. According to Consortium Legal Code Section 847.3, any species subjected to unauthorized military action by a consortium member is entitled to compensation. Section 1204.7 specifies that attempted genocide carries a penalty of 10,000 credits per individual whose life was placed at risk. The Nagathul's eyes narrowed. Those codes apply only to member species. Humans were never granted membership. Actually, Elena continued, consulting her tablet. Under Code Section 23.1, any species that survives a consortium containment action is automatically granted provisional membership status pending formal review. Humanity's survival of Archon Kelthos's attack triggered this clause 3,000 years ago. The tribunal chamber erupted in alien voices, chittering, humming, buzzing, and sounds that had no human equivalent. The hierarch's energy field pulsed rapidly as it processed the implications. Furthermore, Elena pressed on. As a provisional member, humanity has been entitled to trade protection and technological sharing agreements for the past 3 millennia. The failure to provide these services constitutes breach of contract under sections 445 through 891. Sarah watched with satisfaction as the mathematical reality of the situation dawned on the assembled aliens. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, she said. You try to commit genocide against 6 billion humans. We survived. Under your own laws, this makes us a member species entitled to 3,000 years of back compensation. How much do we owe you again? The Nagathul was frantically working on some kind of calculation device. Its scaled face had gone pale. The compensation for 6 billion individuals at 10,000 credit per individual, plus 3,000 years of missed trade benefits, plus compound interest at galactic standard rates. 60 trillion credits in genocide compensation, Elena announced cheerfully. Plus, another 40 trillion in missed trade benefits. Plus, interest. The total comes to approximately 847 trillion galactic standard credits. That's impossible, the crystalline rang out. The entire consortium treasury doesn't contain that much currency. Admiral Harrison stepped forward, his weathered face showing the ghost of a smile. Well then, he said, I guess you have a problem. Sarah addressed the hierarch directly. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to cancel humanity's alleged debt. You're going to grant us full consortium membership with all attendees' rights and privileges. And you're going to ensure that no further containment actions are taken against any species without full tribunal approval. And if we refuse, the Nagathul hissed, then we'll be forced to collect our debt through other means, Sarah said mildly. I'm sure a species that survived attempted stellar genocide could be quite creative about debt collection. The silence stretched on for long moments. Finally, the hierarch spoke. The legal arguments appear sound. Archon Kelthos confirmed the details of the Terra containment action. The crab-like aliens' bioluminescent patches had gone dim with what Sarah could only assume was embarrassment. The stellar manipulation devices were deployed as described. The target species should not have survived. But they did, the hierarch observed. Against all probability and precedent, they survived. Elena cleared her throat. There's one more thing. Under consortium law, member species are entitled to reparations for historical grievances. The attempted extinction of humanity qualifies as the largest historical grievance on record. What kind of reparations? The hierarch asked weakly. Full technological sharing agreements, access to all consortium databases and archives, and a seat on the Tribunal of Economic Justice, Sarah said. "We want to make sure this never happens to anyone else." The Nagathal's calculating device made a sound like a dying animal. The technological transfer alone would be worth tens of thousands of years of advancement. "Consider it a late, welcome gift," Admiral Harrison said dryly. "Drop a comment below. What would you have demanded from aliens who try to genocide your species? I want to hear your thoughts on humanity's negotiation tactics." The hierarch's energy field stabilized into what might have been resignation. The tribunal recognizes the legal validity of the human claims. Species designation human is hereby granted full consortium membership. All alleged debts are canceled. Technology sharing protocols will be initiated immediately. "In our seat on the tribunal," Sarah pressed, "will be prepared for your representative within one standard cycle." Sarah nodded. "Excellent. Oh, and one more thing. We'll need a full list of all species currently undergoing containment actions. I think the new human representative to the tribunal might want to review those cases." As they made their way back to the docking bay, Elena couldn't contain her excitement. "Did you see their faces when I calculated the compound interest? I don't think the Nagathal will recover from the shock." Admiral Harrison chuckled. The first time Sarah had seen him smile in months. 3,000 years they've been collecting debts from primitive species. I wonder how many others would have similar legal grounds for reparations. "That's something for our new tribunal representative to investigate," Sarah said, "along with reviewing every containment action from the last few millennia." As the Resolute undocked from Nexus Station, Sarah looked back at the massive construction one more time. When they'd arrived, it had seemed like a symbol of alien power and human helplessness. Now it looked different, smaller somehow. "Commander," Torres called from the navigation station, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. President Kim wants a full briefing on the negotiations." "Tell her the debt has been collected in full," Sarah said, "and we're bringing home some very interesting gifts." 3 months later, Commander Sarah Chen stood in the same tribunal chamber, but this time she wore the robes of a consortium justice. The case before her was eerily familiar. A newly discovered species accused of trade violations, threatened with containment if they couldn't pay their civilization debt. The species in question looked remarkably like humans, bipedal, mammalians, obviously intelligent. Their representative stood in the same circle of harsh light where Sarah had once faced impossible demands. "The consortium's position is clear," the Nagathal debt collector was saying. "Species designation Kepler 442b. Alpha owes 47,000 credits for unauthorized use of hyperspace routes. Payment is due immediately." Sarah consulted her tablet, one loaded with technology that had advanced human science by 10,000 years overnight. "I've reviewed the case files," she announced. "The species in question achieved FTL travel 18 months ago. They've made exactly 3 hyperspace transits, all within their own solar system." "Irrelevant," the Nagathal hissed. "Use of hyperspace incurs automatic fees." "Under which legal code?" Sarah asked pleasantly. Section 1847.2. "That section was repeated last month," Sarah informed the chamber. The new human tribunal representative proposed some updates to consortium law. "We felt that charging species for using empty space was a bit excessive." The representative of the threatened species, Ambassador Kithera of the Kepler Republic, looked up at Sarah with obvious relief. "Justice Chun, on behalf of my people, I thank you for your intervention." Sarah smiled down at the alien diplomat. "No need to thank me, Ambassador. We're all members of the same galactic community. We look out for each other." As the session concluded and the various aliens filed out of the chamber, the hierarch's energy field flickered with what Sarah had learned to recognize as amusement. "Justice Chun, your species continues to surprise us." "How so, Hierarch?" "Most species that achieve power seek to dominate others. Humans seem determined to prevent domination altogether." Sarah considered that for a moment. "Maybe it's because we remember what it felt like to be on the other side. When someone tried to exterminate us for the crime of existing, we learned something important. which is that the universe is big enough for everyone, as long as nobody's trying to make it smaller. As Sarah made her way back to her chambers, she passed a viewport showing the construction of humanity's newest project, a massive space station orbiting Nexus, designed to serve as a refuge for species fleeing persecution or containment actions. They'd named it Haven Station, and its databases were already filling with refugees from across the galaxy. The irony wasn't lost on her. 3,000 years ago, the consortium had tried to reduce humanity to a handful of survivors on barren resource worlds. Now humans are using consortium technology and laws to protect other species from the same fate. Her communicator chimed with an incoming message from Admiral Harrison, now commanding the Joint Human Consortium Exploration Fleet. Sarah, you want to see this? We've found the remains of 17 different civilizations in the Outer Rim, all showing signs of stellar manipulation. How many species do you think the consortium contained over the years? Sarah looked out at the stars and thought about all the civilizations that hadn't been quite as stubborn or quite as lucky as humanity. I don't know, James, but we're going to find out. And if any of them survive somewhere out there, we're going to find them too. The debt had been collected in full, but humanity's real work, the work of making sure it never happened again, was just beginning. In the end, the Galactic Trade Consortium learned an important lesson about trying to collect debts from a species that had evolved on a world where everything was constantly trying to kill them. They learned that sometimes the best way to collect a debt isn't to demand payment. Sometimes it's to simply survive long enough to collect the interest. The end.